Welcome back to From the Stands. It is the college football game day show. We are finally in the meat of the season here. We got our New Year's Six Bowls and our playoff games coming at you this week. Joining me again, we have Andy and Tom, our Illinois Illini and Notre Dame Fighting Irish fans. How's it going, guys?
Going good, Brian. This Wisconsin game today was kind of a wreck, and Oklahoma as well. But enjoying some good bowl games. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Andy, how's it going?
It's bowl season, boys. Best time of the year. When you can wake up on a Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday morning and at 11 a.m. Central Time, you tune into the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Not a lot of complaints from this guy. So it's been great so far. I'm glad to be back. Excited to talk about these New Year's Six Bowls and the college football playoff.
Yeah, and for as weird as that name is, Duke's Mayo probably getting a little bit of Twitter time because Wisconsin has already broken their trophy in the locker room, so didn't last very long. I guess that's why you don't make trophies out of glass. I guess that's the lesson here. But yeah, interesting scenario there. Let's get into. It's been about 20 or so bowls so far that we've had. A lot of the smaller ones. Which ones have interested you guys so far? We'll start with Andy on this one.
As far as bowl games so far go, I mean the Duke's Mayo Bowl today was pretty good. We were just talking about that, but it's been a good one. I really like the Marshall and the Buffalo game from a few days ago. To be honest with you, I didn't prepare like a specific bowl game. I just know that the overs have been hitting
Okay.
at quite a great rate in the bowl games so far. So I like points.
Yeah, there you go. What about you, Tom?
Well, the one I'm going to go with is Oklahoma State over Miami. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys came into that game ranked 21st, and then they beat 18th ranked Miami, who just got they're pretty much in a hurricane against UNC's running game a couple weeks ago. They did not look good. I know BYU UCF was another appetizing game as well, but for me, it's Oklahoma State. I know earlier in the season, since that loss they had to Oklahoma, they've pretty much hit their stride. Spencer Sanders with 4 touchdown passes and wide receiver Brendan Presley with over 100 receiving yards and a hat trick worth of touchdowns. The Hurricanes quarterback, De'Aaron King, left the game in the first half and didn't return with a right leg injury. So I think that kind of played a factor late down the stretch that gave the Cowboys the upper hand. But, Miami still had their top guns. They had Brevin Jordan out there at tight end. And, guys, Oklahoma State, I'm really proud of them this year. That Big 12 team coming out on top in the Cheez-It Bowl. That's my game.
The cheese, one of the best bowl games of all time with the 2018 Cheez-It Bowl that ended 10-7. I do have a game though. Now that I think about it, Liberty over Coastal Carolina, 37-34, a game we missed out on earlier this year that actually gets to be played in the FBC Mortgage Cure Bowl. But I mean, shout out to Malik Willis from the Flames. He runs for 4 touchdowns on 21 carries and 137 yards, just proving that he is a dual threat, one of the best in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you guys covered the exact 3 that I liked. So, I mean, I guess they must have been really good bowl games if we all had them. Obviously, the BYU UCF game, heartbreaker there for me to watch that one because we got smoked early on. Never were coming back there, but Zach Wilson obviously doing a hell of a job. He had 3 touchdowns, 400 plus yards. Once you go down in a hole against someone like that, it's always hard to get back, especially with how fast we play. Uh, just gives the other team the opportunity to run up the points on you, and that's what they did. And then, like Tom said, Oklahoma State versus Miami. Really would have liked to see De'Aaron King play the whole game there, see what would happen. But N'Kosi Perry stepped in, did pretty well, and they almost made the comeback. That was an interesting game to watch. And then Liberty Coastal Carolina, like you said, the Cure Bowl. We didn't get to see it in the regular season. And if I'm Coastal Carolina, I'm maybe a little pissed off that my bowl game was literally just a rescheduled regular season game. Um, but it was still a good game. Malik Willis is a very good QB, so that was always going to be an interesting one. But I think Coastal Carolina might have liked to play some other team there than someone that was already on their schedule. And the blocked field goal in overtime to lose that undefeated record. Um, Never how you want to end the season, but all in all, that was a good one to watch. So, and then we've got a few filler bowls here to talk about. These aren't the New Year's Six, or the playoff games, but it's got some New Year's Six action from December 30th, which is today, up till January 2nd. People are gonna have plans, New Year's plans, so we're gonna get them maybe the best one to watch on each day. We're filming this right now during Florida Oklahoma, the Cotton Bowl. We kind of talked about it a little bit. We can't really watch it while we're filming here, but what are you guys' thoughts on how that game is going so far? Oklahoma up 31-13 on Florida.
Well, I mean, I kind of saw this coming, guys. Oklahoma was favored by 7, and after Florida has lost their last 2. It's more about what have you done lately, not what have you done this year. And, I get it. Florida had some good games this year, some good performances, but OU defensively is just a lot better. Nick Bonino, 7.5 sacks on the year, and their defensive lineman, Isaiah Thomas, leads the team with 8. And Oklahoma has not lost since October 3rd. Everyone was screaming when they were 1-2. Oh, their Big 12 championship streak is going to come to an end. They are the most overrated team in this conference. Well, they had wins against Texas, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State on their resume. Those were all ranked teams at the time that they beat them. I'm not shocked. I get it. You got a tight end like Kyle Pitts who isn't playing tonight. Rare prospect that hurts them. Rumor has teams might gamble on him, like the Bengals may gamble on him in the top 5 of the draft. I know it's an upgrade over Drew Sample, but look, I'm not shocked. Kyle Trask, a little bit of a disappointment tonight so far, the 2 interceptions. And, with all those
3
players out, you got to go Sooners here.
Oh, he's had another interception.
It's 3?
Oh,
No way. Wow. Go Sooners.
Box score. So Kyle Trask is 16 for 28, 158 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Yeah, he's out of the Heisman.
They pulled him. Emory Jones is 5 for 9 with 73 yards.
What a joke.
So obviously we're not watching the game right now. So does that mean that they pulled Kyle Trask? Currently down 31-13, like you said.
I was going to say what it means the Heisman is down to a 3-man race.
Yeah, pretty much.
Absolutely. And it sucks. It really sucks because to me, Kyle Trask was my Heisman favorite the entire year. Going up to these last few weeks, I really want Devonta Smith to take this Heisman, guys. When was the last time we saw a receiver win the Heisman Trophy? That is what I'm looking for. I mean, Smith obviously already been named the AP College Football Player of the Year. But if we're going back to this Florida game, I mean, you talk about what Oklahoma's been able to do. Spencer Rattler's 10 for 16, 163 yards and 2 scores. He's averaging 10.2 yards per attempt. Per catch, I should say. Getting whatever they want on the offensive side of the ball. And then Rashai Stevenson, 14 carries for 111 yards, averaging 7.9 yards a carry there. Florida's defense has been a problem for them all year, so it's not a shock to me that they are not been able to stop the Sooners. But you can just see how much they really are missing Tony Pitts, and then I'm sorry, their number 2 receiver's name is slipping me. But you can just see how much Trask was missing his weapons tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It's not surprising when you have that many guys opt out, even if you're as good as Trask is. But just to comment on what Tom was calling out, I think was one of those people who was guilty in the beginning of the year for dogging on Oklahoma for their bad start. But something that I guess I hadn't really kept in mind was that Ramondre Stevenson was out, suspended for a few games, and I think there might have been another injury on the defensive side. Big player, the name is slipping my mind. But they got them back, and like you said, now they haven't lost since October. So I agree, it's not surprising that they're not only were in this game, but are now kind of dominating Florida here. Literally ran Kyle Trask, a Heisman hopeful up until a few weeks ago, off the field as he's been replaced by Emory Jones. So yeah, I'm good on Oklahoma for not shutting down the season and the guys quitting because they went on and got the Big 12 title. Now they're dominating Florida, who was a playoff hopeful not too long ago. So good on them.
Oklahoma's got third and goal from the Florida 15, so it's either about to be 38-13 or 34-13. So we'll see. But I do apologize. I said Ramondre Stevenson's name wrong. I was not even close there.
That's okay. I think I've butchered a few names over the course of the year on here, pretty bad. And then for New Year's Eve, December 31st, we have a few bowls. We have the Armed Forces Bowl, Tulsa versus Mississippi State, the Arizona Bowl, Ball State versus San Jose State, and West Virginia versus Army in the Liberty Bowl. Who would you guys tell, or which game would you guys have people watch for New Year's Eve if they can only catch one? Tom, we'll start with you on this one.
So I'm going to go West Virginia and Army because West Virginia is a young rebuilding team, and they're still recovering from the losses of Will Grier and David Sills to the NFL. 3 of their 4 losses, West Virginia this year, they're 5-4. Their record's not so great, but 3 of their 4 losses come against ranked teams, and they did beat Kansas State back on Halloween, who was ranked number 16 at the time. So they do have an impressive win on their resume. I like what junior quarterback Jarrett Doge brings to the table. 13 touchdowns, only 3 picks in 9 games. Letty Brown is averaging over 5 yards a carry. He lurking around 950 yards on the season, 9 touchdowns. And Army is now facing their biggest task since Cincinnati earlier this year, where they only lost by 2 possessions. Sandon McCoy is going to come out strong, leads the team with 10 touchdowns. So I think this is going to be a very close game. I think Army is a team that likes to run the football a lot. We know the triple option style offense that they run. Similar to what we saw in the Army-Navy game. That's what you're going to get here with them. You can probably count on one hand how many passes they're going to throw, fellas. But yeah, I think West Virginia is going to have their hands full with the Army Black Knights. That's my sleeper game.
Okay. I don't know, let Andy go next. I think we have the same game here, probably.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see. What's your pick here?
We might, but I mean... So my pick, to comment on Tom's real quick, to hear Tyler, 5'8" quarterback for the Black Knights, inject that right into my veins, fellas. Run the damn ball. Get it done. But West Virginia favored by 7 going into that game. I'm going to be really interested to see how close that is. And congratulations to the Black Knights for getting into a bowl game. Ridiculous that they almost didn't have the opportunity to play for that 10th win, something that these guys absolutely deserve. My game of the week, I'm going Ball State versus San Jose State. This is a matchup that features 2 conference champions and 1 combined loss. This should be an awesome offensive battle. Both of these teams are averaging over 440 yards of total offense per game. They like to air it out. Ball State averages 276 pass yards per game with their quarterback Drew Plitt leading the way. He's completed 152 of his 231 attempts for 1,937 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's also completing 65% of his passes while averaging 8.4 yards per attempt. They've been able to move the ball effectively down the field. We saw them upset Buffalo in the MAC championship game. I know I got a lot of buddies that are Ball State grads, so chirp, boys. But if you go over the San Jose State side, they're undefeated. 7-0, Mountain West champions. They're led by Nick Starkel. They're averaging 301 pass yards per game. Starkel is a former Texas A&M guy. He spent a year at Arkansas, finally found his home in San Jose, and he has been incredible for the Spartans, guys. 138 for 212, 1,906 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, also completing 65% of his passes. True real pocket passer. He's not going to bring you much with his legs. I believe he has negative rushing yards on the season. I'm sure those are all due to sacks. But the story for me here is Ball State is allowing 441 yards per game. It's really going to be crucial for those guys to get a stop, be able to get their offense back on the field. And the Spartans have been really effective against the run. Can the Cardinals run the ball effectively? San Jose State enters this contest only allowing 109 yards per game. Kyle Harmon at linebacker and defensive end Valami Fihoko, incredible name there, have really been great at getting pressure into the backfield this season for the Spartans. Harmon leads the team with 41 total tackles, while Fihoko has been an absolute menace on opposing quarterbacks with 5 total sacks in 7 games.
Yeah, I'm glad I let you go first on that one because I was right. We did have the same game, and that made my work a lot easier. Yeah, that's going to be a really fun one to watch, I think. Like you said, the double conference champions. It's kind of like a mini G5 New Year's Six Bowl for them. Uh, and yeah, Nick Starkel, like you said, couldn't really make it in the SEC, but he's found a new home out west for a smaller school, but he's been getting it done. Minimal interceptions, like you said, 16 touchdowns. And I think this is going to be really fun if you like offense. Really fun game to watch. Both teams, oddly enough, do pretty well against the run. Neither team, though, is really pushes the run that much. So hopefully we'll see both teams air it out a lot, and both defenses struggle to keep those passes in check, and we get a high scoring one. I think the over/under is at 64 right now. I think probably the over hits there on that one. But yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch, I think, as well as the West Virginia Army game. I did want to add, I'm glad they actually got a bowl because it would have been an absolute travesty had they not been in the bowl season at 9-2 this year. So glad they snuck in. Thanks Tennessee for getting those COVID cases, I guess. Then New Year's Day, we have a few games. January 1st, we have the Peach Bowl, Georgia versus Cincinnati. In Georgia, a little bit of home field advantage there, and Auburn versus Northwestern in the Citrus Bowl. Northwestern, obviously, the Big Ten Conference Championship runner-up. Which game are you taking to watch in this or on this day, Andy?
Is this even a question? It's Georgia versus Cincinnati, and I don't think it's close. Northwestern and Auburn is going to be an absolute snooze fest. Don't even bother turning that game on. Sorry to any Tigers or Wildcats fans that are watching this, but come on. We want to see Cincinnati versus the big dogs, right? This is Cincinnati's chance to prove that they can hang with the big boys. I'm sure they have somewhat of a bad taste in their mouth after the way they were treated by the CFP committee. I truly believe that the Bearcats are the best G5 team that we have seen in a long time. I am sorry, Brian. I think they're better than those undefeated UCF teams. I know you're not going to love that, but I really do think Cincy is going to be pissed off on how the committee viewed them down the stretch of the season. They got moved down farther and farther each week after, they did miss a couple weeks for COVID, but I don't know how an idle week moves you down one spot when you're not even playing a game. I did want to see them have a chance at the playoff. Not that I think they are one of the best 4 teams, because I do believe that Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Alabama are the best 4 teams. I think they did get that right, but I would have liked to see an undefeated Cincinnati team ranked a little bit higher than they were. So, they are undefeated on the year. They didn't get into the playoff, but they get their New Year's Six game versus a blue blood. They are only 5-4 against the spread this season. I don't love that. They are, I believe Georgia is minus 6.5 on the to enter the game if you are a gambling person. But I do think this is a team out of the SEC that Cincinnati can hang with. You look at what Desmond Ridder has been able to do for the Bearcats this year. He's completing 66% of his passes. He's thrown for 2,090 yards, 17 scores. Plus, if you let him, he can get out of the pocket and hurt you with his legs. The junior has rushed for 572 yards and 5 scores on the season. How does the Georgia defense kind of handle that dual threat guy? If you're talking about Georgia, USC transfer JT Daniels came in at quarterback, wasn't able to make an impact right away, but he starts the last 3 games for the Bulldogs. He gets his chance. He takes advantage of it. He's 54 for 81, 839 yards, 9 touchdowns, and only 1 interception in those 3 games, completing 66% of his passes. Can he stay hot in this game? Can he get the ball out to Georgia's weapons, who I don't want to say are automatically better than the Cincinnati defense, but you'd like to think an SEC blue blood has a little bit better athletes on the field than a team from the American Conference. Again, no shade to you there, Brian. Both of these teams do feature outstanding defensive units. The Bearcats are only allowing 16 points per game. The Bulldogs only allowing 19.9. Even more impressive for Georgia when you think about the teams they've had to play in the SEC. So which team is going to be able to get more stops down the stretch really is my thing here. Georgia's run defense has been outstanding. They're only allowing 69.3 yards per game on the ground. Cincy's pass defense is also going to be a storyline for me here, only allowing 192 pass yards per game on the year. Really, the storyline for me, like I just said, Cincy's pass game versus the Bulldogs' run defense. Like, which defense is going to step up? Which defense is going to get more stops? How does Desmond Ridder look against an SEC defense that has been billed as one of the best in the country all year?
Yeah, I mean, this, for me, I'm just going to disregard all the shade you threw at UCF with that Cincy comment. No, but the Cincy team is very good. Something, I guess, similar about the seasons they've had to those two UCF seasons over the past couple of years. We used to call them the Cardiac Nights because every game you're going to have a heart attack because it was going down to the wire, but they held on every single time. Cincy has done that. Definitely shown in the last two games. The UCF game, they held on 36-33 against a UCF team that was probably above average, not great, but making 80 offensive plays a game. They can strike at any moment. Then they go against Tulsa in the conference championship game. I told you guys, you got to be scared of Tulsa. For some reason, Tulsa can pull it off against, some of the better teams in the AAC at any given time. They held on for that game 27-24. So I can see the similarities, but now that Georgia's, kind of settled in with JT Daniels, no quarterback decision issues. The team is sort of coasting now, and I think they're going to be too good. Like you said, Ridder is very good on his feet, and that always helps when you have that dual threat option. But Georgia allowing less than 70 yards per game on the ground. That is very, very low. I wanted to look up whether that is the lowest in CFB before the show, but I forgot. If it's not, it's probably got to be in the top 5. That's 70 yards on the ground when you're going against SEC teams who, like to run the ball quite a good amount. That's impressive. So I don't know if Ridder, and I think Dokes is their number one running back on Cincinnati. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it going on the ground. If they can, I think they have a chance. I'm not too hopeful here. And while I would like to see the AAC get another nice New Year's 6 win, I don't see it happening in this game. Georgia just looks too good for me in this matchup.
I do want to say, I just think Cincinnati has more to play for than Georgia.
That's true.
When was the last time Cincinnati was in a New Year's 6 bowl game? And this is just, I don't want to say it's nothing to these Georgia players. I'm not in the Georgia locker room. I'm not a part of that program, so I don't know. But you think these Georgia guys that are a year or two removed from national championship games, college football playoff conversations, give a fuck about the Peach Bowl? I don't think so.
So yeah, that's the conversation. This is very similar to what people said during UCF's Peach Bowl against Auburn. And then comparatively to the LSU game the next year, Auburn seemed to have not cared because we won, and then LSU seemed to have cared a lot about that game because they beat us. So if you're a player, I don't think you ever want to lose. I'm sure they're not as excited about this game, but it is in Georgia. They'll probably at least have family in there. I'm not sure what the fan rule is for that game, but you never want to lose in front of your family and friends. So I think they'll give it a little bit of effort and give Cincy a push here. Who do you have in this game, Tom?
So to get back to your stat on Georgia's run defense, they are the top team in the NCAA, and it's not even close. We're talking like 20 yards. And the second best defense against the run is Oklahoma, giving up 90.6. Georgia's giving up 69.3. So there you go, Brian. I agree. Look, don't get me wrong. I think Northwestern and Auburn, it's going to be a decent game. The spread is actually closer in that game than it is in the Georgia-Cincinnati game, but I'm also going Georgia-Cincinnati. Desmond Ridder, Cincy's quarterback, has 29 combined touchdowns on the season, and they have a really great defensive end in Majai Sanders with 7 sacks, not to mention their DBs Ahmad Gardner and Kobe Bryant, C-O-B-Y. not to be confused with the late great Kobe, each have 3 interceptions. So they're going to be ball hawks in that secondary for an inexperienced quarterback for Georgia and JT Daniels, who's only started the last 3 games, as Andy just mentioned. But keep in mind, Georgia has 2 losses this year. Who are those 2 losses to? Bama and Florida, 2 dominant SEC schools, despite the slip that Florida has been on lately. So I'm going Georgia in this game, but I think that's going to be my game to keep an eye on. If Cincinnati can somehow stick around late, you need to watch out if you're Georgia, because Desmond Ridder, I'm going to tell you something. If they can somehow have him attack you at both levels, they're going to be in this game. The key you brought up, Brian, is stopping Ridder on the run. If you take that element away from Ridder's game and make him one-dimensional, Georgia wins this game easily. It's going to come down to that. And that's what I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, that should be a fun one. And then January 2nd, once everything has calmed down a little bit, after the playoff games, we have a few other bowls. NC State versus Kentucky in the Gator Bowl, Ole Miss versus Indiana in the Outback, Oregon versus Iowa State in the Fiesta, and Texas A&M versus UNC in the Orange Bowl. Tom, who's your pick? If you can tell everyone to watch one game from that day.
That's tough because there's 2 that I really, really want to catch. In all due respect to Breece Hall, I mean, who the hell wouldn't want to watch him? And then after Oregon upset USC in the Pac-12 championship, that's a game to watch. But my game to watch is Texas A&M against UNC. Texas A&M is favored by 7.5. North Carolina just ran Miami off the field a few weeks ago. Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, those 2 running backs have 28 rushing touchdowns combined. Javonte has 19 of them. They are electric. De'Ami Brown has over 1,000 yards on the year. UNC had over 500 rushing yards against Miami. And Sam Howell's an electric quarterback to watch. Who wouldn't want to watch them? I love their defense too. Chaz Surratt and Tomon Fox, each with 6 sacks. Not to mention A&M. The Aggies have good guys too. Kellen Mond is a good quarterback for them, 19 touchdowns. Isaiah Spiller is closing in on 1,000 yards on the year. And the stout defense for A&M that is led by Buddy Johnson. It's time for Jimbo Fisher to take out his anger on the College Football Playoff Committee and try to resolve some sort of beef with Ohio State by blowing out UNC. But I'm going to tell you this, it ain't going to happen because UNC's rushing game is fantastic. This game is on upset watch for me. I'm not saying I'm picking UNC, but this game is definitely on upset watch. They are good. Look, you play in the ACC, I get it. These teams are going to beat each other up, but the same thing with the SEC. But unfortunately for A&M, they missed out due to their loss to Bama. So that's my game to watch.
Who do you say was their leading rushing touchdown RB for UNC?
For UNC?
Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
He has opted out, apparently.
Has he?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought he was a junior. Maybe not.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but like you said, they still have. Yeah, he is a junior.
I didn't either because he was.
I guess he'll be announcing soon, or has already announced for the draft if he's.
I would imagine, right? But yeah.
I mean,
that changes a little bit.
They still have Carter, so I mean, that rushing game has been electric. Carter actually has more yards. I guess Javonte Williams just getting more touches near the end zone there. But yeah, that game is my pick as well, for the sole reason of the shade the committee threw at Texas A&M. Even without Javonte Williams, I think UNC is an offensive powerhouse this year. They've just been getting it done on both sides of the ball. The rushing game really has opened it up for Sam Howell. He's been really fun to watch. He was one of those QBs who, at the beginning of the season, I thought, he was just having a few standout games that weren't really going to hold true, I guess, for the rest of the season, and he'd fall off. But yeah, that offense has really been explosive, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch against Texas A&M's defense. Kellen Mond, I don't know. See, this is interesting because I think I talked about this on the last show we were on. We had a segment on Texas A&M. They're not a high-scoring team. If they go behind big early, We could see something similar to what's happening with Florida here, except you don't have that big arm in Kyle Trask, with a wide receiver like Kyle Pitts, who's can get you back in it at any moment. Just lob one in the corner of the end zone. Uh, their offense is a little bit steadier, not as, I guess, constantly productive. So we'll see what Jimbo does there. I think just from a competition standpoint, that's going to be the most fun. But I do agree that you said there's a few here, because I also do like the Fiesta Bowl. I just want to see how Brees Hall finishes out the game against Oregon, who was the surprise Pac-12 winner. But yeah, if I could pick one, I'm picking the Orange Bowl here, just for that Texas A&M UNC matchup. What's your game for this day, Andy?
Well, gentlemen, you guys took the words right out of my mouth. So I also had Texas A&M versus UNC. It is unfortunate to hear that Williams has opted out, but I mean, it's hard not to blame him if you finish your junior year with 1,140 yards and 19 touchdowns. Hard not to tell somebody that you shouldn't try to go to the NFL. So best of luck to him. But I mean, UNC, man, is able to move the ball on the ground. They're able to move the ball through the air. We mentioned Sam Howell. He's thrown for over 3,000 yards this year with 3,352. He got 27 scores. The Tar Heels have two players with over 1,000 yards rushing. Like I said, Williams, and then you mentioned Michael Carter, who actually has more. So Carter with 1,245 and 9 touchdowns by himself. And then Diami Brown on the outside has been absolutely electric for the Tar Heels. Just under 1,100 yards with 1,099 yards, 8 scores. Texas A&M also, though, they do probably have a bad taste in their mouth from the college football playoff. I know I said the same thing about Cincinnati, but I think Texas A&M has way more of a bad taste. They were a lot closer than the Bearcats. You mentioned Kellen Mond. He's having a really good year. 63% of his passes are being completed. That's a career high for him. He's got 2,050 yards, 19 scores. And then Isaiah Spiller has been really good for the Aggies out of the backfield. 986 yards and 7 scores for him. UNC, though, they just put points on the board, guys. They're averaging 43 points per game. A&M's only giving up 21, though. Where's the line here? Do we give the advantage to the Aggie defense or to the Tar Heel offense? I'm going to give it to North Carolina. I love what Tom said. If they get up early, watch out. I think the Tar Heels can win here, but I think you pick this game just for the amount of scores, the amount of big plays that we are going to see. Obviously, it hurts that Williams isn't playing, but I still think this is going to be an awesome game.
All right, so across the board, sorry to Iowa State and Oregon there. No one's picking that one. This game's just too good, I guess. The UNC Texas A&M matchup. But moving on, it is the new year coming up. I'm gonna give out some New Year's resolutions. New year, new you. We're gonna give out a few, 3 each. I think we have here. Tom, what are your New Year's resolutions for some players or some coaches or some teams you got for 2021?
So I have 3. First and foremost, I think Trevor Lawrence should want to go out on top. I think prove why he should be the Heisman winner over Mac Jones. I think there's a huge opportunity. You go up against Fields and you go up against Mac Jones. I think his New Year resolution should be to reclaim his throne as, I mean, I still think he is the top college football player right now. Let's be real. But to be back on top for the Heisman Trophy candidate, and I think he has a shot. I mean, the field is basically down to 3 players, and he's the only non-Bama guy there. My next one is, I think Marco Wilson needs to win Player of the Game tonight for Florida. He should buy the man's shoe. He threw a new pair of sneakers. I think that's another one that he should do. Try to, mend the fence or mend bridges there. And then the third one is, I think Ohio State should be writing a huge thank you letter to the Big Ten and the College Football Playoff Committee, because they should not be in the position that they're in right now. They should not be the 3 seed in the College Football Playoff. I don't care that they won the Big Ten championship game. I think they have to be very, very, very thankful. And I think as far as the College Football Playoff Committee goes, I think maybe be a little bit nicer to the G5 conferences next year. So those, I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I'm heading for with that. A new year, a new you, especially Marco Wilson. He's got some growing up to do.
Yeah, do we have any live stats on Marco Wilson for right now? Player of the game, that's a big ask for how far down they are right now.
Let's see.
41-13 now. So Oklahoma has increased their lead.
Oh,
but yeah.
Let's see. Defensively, Jesus, I don't even see anything here. Oh.
Yeah, if you're getting 41 dropped on you, well, it's the end of the third now, but still, I don't know how productive Marco Wilson has been if they're already down. Florida's got 41 on the board. But for my New Year's resolutions, my first one is out of the Pac-12, and their resolution needs to be to get out of a toxic relationship, in particular with a man named Larry Scott. I'm not sure why he's still there. He must have some dirt on somebody, maybe some weird pictures, some weird fetish pictures from Mario Cristobal of Oregon, because he has bungled just about everything in the Pac-12 for the past couple of seasons. And if I'm an AD for a Pac-12 school or a coach for one of these bigger schools, I'm getting pretty impatient at this point. I mean, I say they, but through Larry Scott, the planning for the Pac-12 season completely ended any chance they had at getting into the playoffs. I mean, granted, a team would not have made it because, Oregon didn't win it with those two losses, but just from the start, not great planning on their part. Never giving them a chance. Their TV contracts, the way they've handled Pac-12 network, I think Larry Scott doesn't understand TV, maybe. I don't know how many people he thinks want to actually subscribe to the Pac-12 network. Maybe move those games a little earlier. We love Pac-12 After Dark, Larry, but maybe give us some good games all day long. People will tune in. They'll say, hey, this conference is a little bit better than I thought. And they'll watch a little bit more Pac-12 action. And then just from a competition standpoint, over the 6 years that we've had the playoff, the SEC has had 8 teams in. The Big Ten has had 5. ACC has had 7, 8 if you count Notre Dame for this season. I think I will. I mean, they played the entire conference, so 8 for the ACC, 4 for the Big 12. And the Pac-12 has had a measly 2 teams in the college football playoff since it was instated. That's really, really bad. One of those was the first year with Oregon. And then I think Washington squeaked in one year and then got hammered.
Washington team that shouldn't have been there.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just not a great look. So get out of that relationship, Pac-12. Pay Larry Scott whatever he needs to just go away. Hire somebody new. My second one, New Year's resolution, is for Devonta Smith, and he should wanting to be cleaning up his home or in reorganizing, specifically one room, and that is wherever he keeps the biggest cabinet, because it's going to hold a Heisman Trophy coming next week. So he needs to clean up a nice big space in the middle there for that Heisman Trophy. Like you said earlier, Andy, he already won the AP College Player of the Year, first wide receiver ever to do that. So I don't know what the precedent is for people winning AP Poll of the Year and then how they do in the Heisman. But if he's the first wide receiver to win it, that's a pretty good look so far. He's Bama's career leader in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and he needs 14 catches to get the career receptions record, which he very well could do if Alabama wins their semifinal game. He's gone to a program in Alabama that, since Saban's tenure has started there, has produced some exceptional wide receivers. I don't know if I would call them wide receiver U, but you've got Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, and now Devonta Smith, who might very well be the best of that group, which is really weird to say. All those guys were spectacular in college and are still pretty good in the NFL, pretty damn good in the NFL. But I don't know if I've ever seen a receiver there who any catch he makes, you're just completely wowed. Maybe that's just the way he catches the ball. Even the simple ones he makes look spectacular. I don't know. But he's been phenomenal. I said get on the train early last week or last show that we did, if you can bet on the Heisman, because you get pretty good odds. They actually weren't that great. They're like plus 200, but he's now the favorite to win it. So, um, yeah, I'd like to see that trophy go to Devonta Smith, and hopefully he's got a nice place organized to set that nice trophy. And my third is for the ACC, and their New Year's resolution needs to be open to new things. Adding Notre Dame has been a breath of fresh air, I think, for me for the ACC. Um, People have dogged on them for Clemson basically running the entire conference. FSU was in there, I think, the first year in the college football playoff, but it's been Clemson, Clemson, Clemson ever since. But adding the second team in Notre Dame has made the ACC probably the second best conference this year, in my opinion. And I think if they can, I know Tom, you talked a few shows ago about the TV contracts being an issue, but if they can, sort something out, say 3 years down the road to get Notre Dame added officially, make it happen, whatever money it takes, because we see these conferences like the SEC. People say, oh, they're sneaking two teams in. Do they really deserve it? They usually do, in my opinion. And I think if you add Notre Dame into the ACC officially, you're going to have two powerhouses that probably will also be in that same scenario, fighting to get two teams into the playoff. And if they also keep this open conference, no divisions this year, top two, I think that would help them. We saw, because of the no divisions, Notre Dame got to play the rematch against Clemson. Both teams, obviously the two best in the ACC this year, but definitely also, I think inarguably, at least two of the six best teams, and they each come out with a win. So I don't know how you could ever take one of them out, seeing that they both won one of those games. So for me, the ACC, I think they should be open to something new and try to get Notre Dame down the road, and maybe just open or cancel the divisions completely and go to this Big 12, top to bottom model. That would be nice for me. Andy, what are your New Year's resolutions for some of these teams or players or coaches or whatever you got?
So I got three. I'll do the first one for my team for Illinois. New head coach Brett Bielema. I did mention that on the last show, who the coaching candidates. We took him from Tom's New York Giants, which I mentioned that he wasn't my original candidate that I wanted, but we could do a lot worse. Talk myself into it, fellas. I'm all in on the Brett Bielema era in Champaign. But yeah, I just don't think we could have done much better. I'm glad that somebody that wants to be the coach at Illinois is the coach at Illinois. He seems like he's very into it, very into the job, wanting to get back into the coaching scene. So what I want him to do, what his resolution should be, is recruit the state of Illinois hard. Capital HARD. The state's flagship school, Illinois, has struggled to get the best talent from the state for quite a while now, especially due to Lovie Smith's lack of emphasis on recruiting the state, building relationships with Illinois high school coaches, and really lack of even pretending to give a shit about it. So Bielema has really made that a priority already. I know he hasn't been the coach for very long, but within the first few hours, he was already on the phone with Illinois high school coaches, with people from the IHSA Association, people all around the state. He's meeting with these people over Zoom. He's on phone calls, trying to build these relationships, trying to get his foot in the door with these top recruits in the state. He's hired a couple guys already, an offensive coordinator who was over at App State, Tony Peterson. That doesn't really have anything to do with Illinois, but his offensive line coach is from the Chicago area as well, has deep ties in the state of Illinois, which is what you need to see. Like any flagship university, any major university, any state should be recruiting their own state the hardest, especially if you look at the talent up by Chicago, or even the talent that's down by St. Louis as well. That isn't really a part of Illinois, but there are quite a few towns that are still on the Illinois side that are considered in the St. Louis area. So that is my first resolution for the new Illini head coach, Brett Bielema. Recruit the home state hard. Let's win these recruiting battles, get these guys from Chicago, from all over the state to their home university, and build a winner here. My second one is the College Football Playoff Committee. Gut the entire thing and start over. This has been maybe the worst playoff committee of its inception, in my opinion. I do believe they got the Final Four correct. I do think that, but their ranking of teams throughout the year has been absolutely atrocious. Get people who actually believe that the results of each games matter. Get people who actually believe that these teams are more than just their brand name or more than just their conference game, conference names. Have a little more respect for the little guys. No more big conference bias unless it's absolutely warranted. Maybe add in more analytics to the conversation, Brian, like you brought up a couple weeks ago, of incorporating the BCS numbers. I like that. Taking a look at both of those into account, because they just, whatever they have going on the committee this year has been a fucking joke. Gary Barta, get out! My last resolution is Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren, get a new job. You suck too. This Big Ten season was an absolute train wreck. In my opinion, this conference mishandled itself immensely. They tried to overcorrect the coronavirus situation, something they were not going to be able to do. They waited too long to start the season. They screwed their teams out of a bye week. They gave themselves no wiggle room. There were a bunch of dumb rules. You talk about 21 days a player has to sit out due to if they test positive. I get it. You don't want anybody to test positive. You want everybody to be safe as possible. But why is your protocol 7 days or more longer than almost every other conference in the nation? You didn't give your teams any bye weeks. Didn't give them an opportunity to reschedule games that got canceled, even if it wasn't that team's fault. We saw it. Nebraska tried to schedule Tennessee, Chattanooga earlier in the year, and the Big Ten shot it down. Why? Why would you not want your conference teams to play as many games as possible? Why would you not want that TV contract? Get your conference more fucking money. Kevin Warren, get a new job. Big Ten, wake up. Warren was looking forward, trying to become the next commissioner of the NFL, trying to make himself look good, and he did the opposite. Made himself look like an absolute idiot. Get a new job. Get a new playoff committee. Bielema, recruit the fuck out of Illinois. Those are my resolutions for this year.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people are on board with commissioners needing to take a hike here. Not to put you on the spot, but do you know off the top of your head who is recruiting Illinois the most or the best right now?
Ohio top
State,
of my head,
maybe?
no, but I would guess Ohio State. I think Iowa recruits Illinois really well. Wisconsin gets a lot of good guys. It's the Blue Bloods, man. I mean, Iowa actually does take a lot of guys from Illinois. Michigan, I think, as well. Maybe not as much now, but it's Illinois, I think, in their last class. I don't know if they had one.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty terrible, honestly.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yes, I wouldn't have guessed one. I would have guessed at least
the
a handful.
Staff, the old staff really tried to emphasize Florida and Texas, which is great. A lot of great athletes down there in those areas, but why are you not trying to win your home state or even making an attempt at any of those guys? And I do know that the U of I has a little bit stricter admissions requirements as some other schools in the Big Ten and all over the country, but it really shouldn't be that hard to get these guys from your home state to your home school.
Right, yeah. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on. So there you go. There's some New Year's resolutions for some teams, some coaches, some commissioners who need to get out. And now we're going to move into the big dogs of the week, the two playoff games. Tom, luckily for you, we could start with the Notre Dame-Alabama game. Notre Dame obviously coming in as the 4 seed, Alabama as the 1. This is the Sugar Bowl. Alabama a 20-point favorite currently. This being played in Texas at Jerry World on ESPN. I think a lot of these bigger bowl games are on ESPN, so if you're watching, you don't really need to change the channel. And we'll start with you on this one, Tom. As the Notre Dame fan, what do you think is going down in the Sugar Bowl? Or sorry, the Rose Bowl. In the Rose Bowl.
So, yeah, 20-point line is not something to be too excited about as a Notre Dame fan, but let's call it the way it is, and let's try to give Notre Dame an argument here. So Notre Dame comes into this game 10-1, Bama's 11-0. This is the first time Notre Dame is playing in a Rose Bowl since New Year's Day, 1925. It'll be 94 years ago, 96 years ago to the date. Notre Dame won 27-10 in that game over Stanford to take home the BCS championship. Or that was actually our first national championship in program history. Now, Notre Dame is coming off a brutal 34-10 loss to Clemson. I know. Ian Book only has one 300-yard passing game this year that came against Clemson. Ian Book is a quarterback that needs to be elite in this game to give Notre Dame any type of chance to win. He needs to throw for over 300 yards. Book doesn't make many mistakes, but he also doesn't make many jaw-dropping plays either. I think you guys consider him as probably a good college football quarterback. I don't know if you label him as great, although he is a Heisman candidate. He's an experienced guy. He was a Heisman candidate, I should say. Book only has 2 picks all year, but he has 8 rushing touchdowns, and he leads an offense that averages 35 points a game. Kyron Williams, in my opinion, a lot of guys compare him to Dalvin Cook. This kid is only a sophomore, has 12 touchdowns, and Notre Dame is a football team that averages 217 rushing yards a game. That's what they do well. Their identity is to run the football, and their passing game gets set up through the run game. You have Ben Skoranek, Javon McKinley, Mike Mayer, Avery Davis. All of those guys are capable targets. Defensively, Notre Dame has only given up 18 points a game. Now, the problem, Alabama is only giving up 19 points defensively a game in a much more competitive, not much more competitive, but a much more difficult SEC schedule that they're going up against. So, Bama, they're coming off a good win against Florida, SEC title game, and their offense is electric. I read a stat somewhere. I don't know how true this is, but they're averaging 0.7 points per minute of every game that they play. And their offense is ranked second in the nation. We talked about this before. Mac Jones only sacked 10 times all year, 32 touchdown passes. He's a Heisman finalist. We already spoke about Devontae Smith, 17 receiving touchdowns, 98 catches. But one guy we didn't talk about is Najee Harris. What did Notre Dame do well to beat Clemson? They stopped Travis Etienne. Najee Harris is Travis Etienne times 5, at least. This guy's second in the nation in rushing. There's no way we're going to be able to stop him. 24 rushing touchdowns on the year, which leads the nation. And they have other capable playmakers, too, like Jalen Waddle. Bama's defense scares me. You got Will Anderson Jr., Christian Harris, Dylan Moses. The list goes on. But Notre Dame is 5-2 all time against Alabama. I will hold us to that. And the last meeting was the BCS championship game back in 2013, where we did lose 42-14. Now, does Notre Dame get their revenge this time around? There's a chance. Now, I'm saying there's a chance. I really don't like Notre Dame in this game. Do I like us to cover? Yes, I do like us to cover because we're not getting blown out. We're not going to get blown out 2 games in a row. We've come too far this year. We've played too good to just roll over in the college football playoff. It's not going to happen. Brian Kelly's going to have his team prepared. Clark Lee, our DC, is going to have these boys prepared. This is an old veteran team. Look, I get it. You're going up against a lot of NFL talents and Najee Harris and Devontae Smith, just to name a couple. The key, you must contain Najee Harris in order to have a chance to win this game because Ian Book, look, he's going to have the game of his life, but the defense is going to have to set up the offense for them to be successful. And if you take away Najee Harris, you can focus on the passing game. You have to somehow find a way to take Najee Harris out of it. I don't think they're going to do it. So give me Bama by about 15, 17 points. I think Notre Dame keeps it close in the first half, and then Bama finds a way to surge through. But got to be a proud Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. It's been an excellent season, and I'm going to give this team about a 15, 16% chance to win this game.
Okay.
I had to go there.
That's lower than I thought you were going to give them.
Yeah.
But I think probably fair. I might bump it up to like 20. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, I mean,
Don't be shocked, though. Don't be shocked if it happens. If we do win, don't be shocked.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of the key points. I don't know if Najee is 5 times better than ETN, um, but like
He's
you
a man's man.
said, they did play them well in the first game, but the second game, ETN had 124 yards on just 10 carries. That's not
Nope.
great. Najee Harris is going to be getting a lot more than 10 carries in this game. So if you're letting someone of that caliber average 12 yards per touch on the ground, you're already not in for a good start. And something kind of going over this game and just comments from other coaches who have been around the program. Mike Loxley, who's at Maryland now, he used to run the offense at Alabama. Said that the transition when he got there, I think starting in 2018, was like being handed the keys to a Maserati, because I guess he had basically gone into discussion with Nick Saban and said he wanted to bump up basically the amount of offensive plays to 80, which is very aggressive. I think that's around what UCF runs. They haven't gotten there, but they're running high 60s amount of offensive plays. And when you're giving a team with that many weapons, that many offensive plays, they have a good chance to run the score up on you. And that's why they're averaging almost 50 points per game, which is just unheard of. If you told me 10 years ago that an Alabama team would be running an offense that's averaging 50 points a game and almost 70 offensive plays, I'd say you're absolutely crazy. Let me know what kind of drugs you're on, because let me get some of those. Because that's just wild numbers. Like, that's not the Alabama of old, even under Saban of just a decade ago. But yeah, Notre Dame, like you said, Ian Book, not a big play guy, only 2 interceptions. But all right, Notre Dame is averaging 6.4 yards per snap, which is higher than Alabama is. But when you can't make those big plays, 30 yard plus passes, Ian Book has just 11 on the season, I believe. I was supposed to write that down, but I did not accidentally deleted it. But I wanted to bring that up because that's very similar to how I've kind of been discussing Kellen Mond. Texas A&M, a very good team, and the style, because of those two quarterbacks, has made them very similar in my mind. If you can't make those big plays, something that Alabama has actually struggled with this year, which is very uncharacteristic, it's very hard to stay in a high-scoring game. So I have to give a pretty big edge here. I know I said I'm giving Notre Dame a higher win percentage chance than you are, Tom. But yeah, I think the spread is probably going to be pretty accurate because Alabama is going to be firing on all cylinders. That offense is just absolutely explosive. And unless Ian Book can come up with some, deep ball threats, like I said, which Alabama has struggled with to keep them in, this might get ugly. So yeah, I'm going Alabama for sure here. But I'll give them, about a 1 in 5 chance that they sneak something out here and surprise all of us. Andy, what's your call on this one?
Yeah, I mean, can Notre Dame's defense stop the Alabama offense? We're talking about an Alabama offense that's averaging 543 yards per game, total yards. I mean, Mac Jones has been absolutely incredible at the quarterback position. You talk about 250 for 327, 3,739 yards, 32 scores to only 4 interceptions. He's completing 76.5% of his passes, guys, and averaging 11.4 yards per attempt. I think I saw some type of stat that said the Alabama offense is averaging like over 4 points per possession. And that's almost as much, if not more, than LSU's offense averaged last year. And we all know how explosive they were. But yeah, I mean, can Notre Dame hang with the Crimson Tide? I mean, Notre Dame's defense only allowing 18 points per game, like Thomas said. But I mean, if you're Alabama averaging 49, what are you supposed to do there? If you're the Irish, I mean, you guys already hit on pretty much everything I wanted to say. You talk about Devontae Smith with 1,500 yards and 17 scores, Najee Harris with over 1,200 yards, 24 touchdowns of his own. can Notre Dame get the run game going themselves? We saw Kyron Williams really struggle in the ACC championship game against Clemson with 50 yards on 15 attempts, only 3.3 yards per carry. That's after averaging 5.4 yards per carry the entire season, 195 attempts for just over 1,000 yards and 12 scores himself. And then can Ian Book lead them to an improbable victory? Thomas, I think you nailed it on the head. He's going to have 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns here. I mean, he is a senior quarterback. He's got the experience. I think he has 30 total wins as the starting quarterback for Notre Dame, the winningest quarterback of all time. So if anybody's going to do it for Notre Dame, is it Ian Book? I mean, we'll see. I mean, they couldn't get much going against Clemson in the ACC title game, like really at all on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, I believe that Book was like 20 for 28 with like 220 yards but for no touchdowns. So then they just really were out of sync. And I mean, Bama's defense isn't the strength of this team, guys. Let's not act like that. I mean, they are allowing 351 yards per game, but it's just, how do you keep up with the Crimson Tide offensively? Like, I think that's the question here. And I just don't know if the Irish can do it.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to watch. But I think, I won't say it's set in stone here, but I think most people will be on Alabama in this game. Then moving on, at 8 o'clock, we have our second playoff game. It is the Sugar Bowl, Ohio State taking on Clemson at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. The line has actually moved pretty significantly on this game. It started around 20 and a half, which is where the Alabama-Notre Dame game is now. But it's down to Clemson minus 7.5. So people really on Ohio State here. Do you guys think Ohio State is the favorite with the line moving that high or that quickly and that drastically, or is Clemson looking to roll here? I'll start with Andy on this one.
I think it's going to be a close game. I don't know if either of them are like looking. I mean, obviously they're both looking to roll. They both want to kick the other team's ass, but I don't know if that's really what's going to happen. I think really the story for me here is, can Trevor Lawrence keep the momentum going from his strong performance in the ACC championship game? You're talking about a performance where he was 25 for 36, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 14 rushes for 90 yards and a touchdown there, proving that he is more than just a pocket passer and he can hurt you with his feet. And then Travis Etienne was back to his normal self, had 10 carries for 124 yards, 1 touchdown in the title game. Who's going to win the battle of the trenches, guys? Ohio State is no joke running the ball either. They're averaging 275.7 rush yards per game with guys like Trey Sermon and Master Teague leading the way there. We saw Trey Sermon's game in the Big Ten championship game breaking records, I believe, with over 250 yards and 3 scores there. But Clemson's rush defense has been incredible this year, guys, only allowing 99.8 yards per game. OSU's great against the run as well, only allowing 96.7 yards per game on the ground. So I really think that is the difference here, guys. Who is going to win that battle on the trenches? Can Clemson's defense get pressure on Justin Fields? How will he be able to handle the pressure? He's been really effective this year. He's completed over 70% of his passes at 72.6%. He's able to run when he needs to. 67 rushes for 274 yards, 5 scores there. And, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns to only 5 receptions is pretty damn good as well. Can Ohio State guard Clemson on the back end? I think that's another point here. Clemson is averaging 343 pass yards per game. The Buckeyes are allowing 261. This isn't the same Buckeye defense that we're used to seeing, guys, with guys like Joey Bosa, Chase Young, and we're talking about like Denzel Ward on the back end. They don't have those athletes anymore. Not to throw any shade on the Buckeyes defense, because I do still think they are a good unit, but not the normal Buckeyes defense we're used to seeing. Can these corners keep up with the Clemson receivers? I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a shootout. It is interesting that the line has moved that much. That's one of those where it's like, what does Vegas know that I don't know?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things when talking about the Ohio State defense, one of the big stories in preseason, I guess, still preseason, was Shaun Wade opting out because of all the COVID stuff, and then obviously opting back in. He is, I want to say he's still projected as first round pick. But that defense hasn't been stellar, like you said. Even when, there's teams that lost players. LSU, had a few wide receivers opt out, and they were all their biggest wide receivers. That's going to hurt you. Ohio State, sort of the other side of the coin, has, probably their best defensive player opt back in, and they still haven't been, spectacular on the defensive side. I know I kind of have given Ohio State shit about the only 6 games. That was sort of in jest, but I think going into this game, I don't even think it hurts them in the fact that, they're in the playoff and aren't deserving. I think it hurts in the fact that you have so much less prep. Clemson has played 11 full-fledged, hard-hitting games, and Ohio State, is still, working out the kinks. That game against Northwestern wasn't very pretty. Justin Fields, where is he? Sorry. I wrote his stats down because they were so abysmal. 12 for 27, 114 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That is not going to get it done in a regular New Year's Six bowl game. It's certainly not going to get it done in a playoff game against, you can argue Alabama versus Clemson as the best team, whoever wants to do that. But one or two, that's Clemson's in there. You got to do way better than that if you want to stay in this game. Clemson, that redemption game against Notre Dame, previously when we talked about it, I said they needed to win it more than Notre Dame if they wanted a chance at the playoffs. So, we can kind of give Notre Dame some slack there. Maybe Clemson put in a little bit extra effort. But watching that game in comparison to that first matchup with Uiagalelei, Trevor Lawrence on his feet, it just made things run so much more smoothly for that Clemson offense. Like in those scenarios where things were breaking down, Uiagalelei tried to go to the air, or he would take the sack, I don't want to say easily, but, because he's a young guy, but, he took those negative plays, and Lawrence, just is gracefully, weaving through defenders when, the pass breaks down. And he's been smart, he's hitting those slides when he needs to, not taking any unnecessary hits. So, yeah, Clemson, I think, is firing on all cylinders, very similar to how Alabama is now that, Trevor Lawrence is kicking it in full gear. So I'm going to take Clemson in this one. I think their initial line at 20.5 was way too high. 7.5 maybe seems about right. I would say probably 6. I would feel safe taking Clemson. But yeah, straight up, I think Clemson probably leaves this game as the winner, and we see Alabama versus Clemson in our championship game for this year. Tom, what's your call on this game?
I want to say that I look like an idiot for saying that Trevor Lawrence didn't change the game as much as everybody thought he was going to after DJ's performance against Notre Dame. But credit to him. The 14 rushes for 90 yards really sold it for me that he's not just a pocket passer, that he can be mobile and make things happen with your legs. And then a little cleanup, Trey Sermon had 29 carries for 331 yards in the Big Ten championship game. So just an absolutely incredible performance.
Yeah, I'll help you out a little bit there and throw all of us under the bus, because when we were talking about that Clemson-Notre Dame rematch line, we all said 10 was ridiculous. And look what happened. So it happens sometimes. Tom, what's your call on the Sugar Bowl here?
Thanks for bringing me back to that memory, by the way. Actually, I only watched like the first 2 minutes of that game. I was not home watching the game that night. But so the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, this is what everybody wanted. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, part 2. Everyone and their mother wanted to see this matchup, and they're going to get it. And part of the reason why I think Ohio State is the 3 seed and not the 4 is because they knew if Ohio State was the 4, they would not get this matchup. That's just my opinion. But without further ado, we'll kind of dive into the analytics of this game. Clemson 4-0 all-time against Ohio State. This is a rematch from last year. Lawrence and Fields met last year in the college football playoff. It was, I believe, a 2-3 scenario again. And because LSU was 1, Fields had 2 picks in that game. It proved to be the key. Fields is, in my opinion, he's not the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft. I don't even think he's the second best quarterback in this draft right now. I think it's Zach Wilson. This was a close game last year. Clemson won 29-23 in the semifinal. Lawrence had, I mean, Brian, you talked about Lawrence, how he can be mobile and be smart with it. Lawrence had 107 rushing yards and a touchdown in that game last year. Lawrence on the year has been great through 9 games, 22 touchdowns, 4 picks, and ETN is going to be a factor again, riding in with those 13 touchdowns. He's also a threat in the passing game. I mean, I witnessed it firsthand. Amari Rodgers and Cornell Powell blew us up 2 weeks ago. And then defensively, we got to talk about Balen Spector. He is the captain there. 61 tackles, 3.5 sacks. I like what Miles Murphy and Trenton Simpson bring to the table. Clemson has given up under 20 points in each of their last 3 games. They haven't given up more than 17 points in any of their last 3 games. And I think it's pretty much a given that they're going to win this one. I'd be shocked if Ohio State wins. Brian, you mentioned a few minutes ago, Clemson is trying to still gather their footing. They're still trying to catch their footing here. Ohio State, they've only played 6 games this year. That's what I meant. Yeah. Ohio State's only played 6 games. Clemson's been playing the full year. So if Ohio State comes into this game and gets slapped, this is going to look really bad on the Big Ten for pushing to get Ohio State into this college football playoff, where you had a team like a Texas A&M or a Cincinnati that could have easily taken their spot and been more competitive. So I don't think the game will be as competitive as last year. In fact, they almost lost to Northwestern. So I'm going Clemson in this game. I think they're going to win. I mean, I think Clemson's going to win by like 10, to be honest with you. Potentially more. It all depends. If Fields gets off to a quick start, then we'll be in for a good treat. But if Fields gets off to a sluggish start, then Clemson's going to run away with it.
I think getting Skalski back on the defensive side of the ball for the Tigers has been really big for them as well.
He's a good player. Yeah.
Was he missing that in Clemson, Notre Dame part 1?
The first game.
Okay.
He was.
So I did remember they had a few people out on the defensive side as well, but I couldn't remember the names there.
Yeah.
All right, well, that will wrap up the show. Enjoy the playoff games. Enjoy the other bowl games if you catch them. If you're sober enough to catch them, I guess. Check out the links in the description for Andy over here and Tom, their podcasts. Be sure to give us a follow and a like right down there if you like the show. And hit the bell notification to get notified when a new episode comes out. Goodbye, everyone. See you next show for the championship game, and enjoy the playoffs.